The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good day, everyone. It's Alan Schimmel, DevOps.com, and you're listening to another DevOps.com webinar. Hope everyone is excited today for a great webinar we have. We're going to be joined by some friends from ABN AMRO, and they're going to be talking about their CI/CD and digital transformation. Before we get started, though, I wanted to just mention a few things. First of all, today's webinar is sponsored by Cloudbees, Jenkins, Cloudbees Enterprise. So many thanks to them for their sponsorship here. For those of you who are not familiar with the DevOps.com webinar, we do use the GoToWebinar control panel. We have set aside time for questions at the end of today's presentation. We ask, however, that you type your questions into the GoToWebinar control panel, marked questions of all things. This way it will allow for you to put your questions in. You don't have to remember them for the end of the webinar. Type them in real time. They're queued. We can queue them up. We can get them in order. It just makes for a much better experience for everyone involved. So please type your questions into the question section. If you're having technical difficulties, though, perhaps the audio isn't working well, the slides aren't progressing, please use the chat section of your GoToWebinar control panel, as we do have engineers standing by who will help you in the best they can in solving your technical issues. So chats for technical issues, questions if you have questions, and I'm sure you will. Don't be shy about asking them. With that, let us get started. As I mentioned, today's webinar is made possible by our friends at ABN AMRO, and they're going to be talking about how ABN AMRO transforms with CI/CD to accelerate software delivery and improve security. We have two great panelists today. If we could go to the next slide. We have Stefan. Here are their pretty pictures up here. We have Stefan Simenon. I'm not going to pronounce it well. I apologize, Stefan. And Wiebe Roos, CI/CD consultant. So, gentlemen, are you ready?
Yes, we're ready, Alan. Thanks for the introduction.
Yeah. Okay, take it away.
Hello to everybody. Let me introduce ourselves because you pronounced the names a little bit wrong, but no issue. My name is Stefan Simenon. I'm head of IT tooling and software development within ABN AMRO. And since 4 years, I'm responsible for the IT tooling and the software quality and continuous integration at ABN AMRO. And joining me is Wiebe Roos. He is one of my team members, CSD consultant, and he is busy, heavily involved in implementing Cloudbees Jenkins Enterprise within ABN AMRO. So I will share the CI/CD setup, the experiences in the beginning. Then I will hand over to Wiebe, who will focus upon the Cloudbees Jenkins implementation within ABN AMRO. And then I will do the final part of the presentation. Let me first introduce ABN AMRO. ABN AMRO is a leading bank within the Netherlands. It's the third largest bank. We have 22,000 internal employees. We are headquartered in Amsterdam, and we have little presence abroad as well. And we are an IT or an Agile organization consisting of 5,000, approximately 5,000 associates, and we have approximately 300 plus Agile teams within ABN AMRO. We used to be a waterfall organization. That was about 3 to 4 years ago. During waterfall, we experienced long lead times and long lead times for starting up projects and long lead times for implementing software into production. There were all kinds of bureaucratic project phases defined, and people were many times waiting for each other to get something approved. So we did an exercise, how long it would take to define and implement an Hello World application. And if we would follow all the processes within the bank, it would take around 6 months. So it took already 2 to 3 months to start up a project. Then a project leader was announced. Then a resource need to be allocated. And then after people had built something, it also took a long time to test and release something to production. At the same time, we saw growing competition, so to say. We see more fintechs popping up, also fintechs who are getting involved in banking industry, and also our banks close by, they were also speeding up. So we needed to do something. We already had started an Agile transition with an ABN AMRO. That means that an Agile program has been set up to do a transition. In the beginning, more and more Agile teams were set up within the waterfall organization, and this was growing continuously. And at some point of time, a reorganization was done to move to a complete Agile enterprise, focusing upon associates having the right Agile mindset, pre-funded teams instead of all kind of people requesting budgets to start up projects. And we used to have much more overhead than we currently have. So we had lots of project officers, lots of project leads, lots of project managers. That has been reduced significantly, and currently we have much more focusing upon software engineering and making sure software is made available to our clients. This Agile transition was completed last year, August, and we already started the continuous integration, continuous delivery initiative, and this initiative is now slightly moving into a DevOps initiative. Next to the Agile transition, we said this is not enough. We also need to speed up software delivery. And for this, we have said we need to do continuous integration, continuous delivery. And in the end, we want to move to continuous deployment. This means that between developing software and deploying software into production, everything is getting automated. We are automating our integration process. People are more and more integrating their software at the early stage. We have implemented all kinds of tools to give full transparency. And continuous delivery, that is all about an automated to prepare a software release moving to production. And continuous deployment, our definition of continuous deployment is that software is moved to production right from commit feature without any human interaction, so to say. This is our ultimate goal. So what did we do in the past? This was about 3 years ago, I think. We set up a program initiative which consisted of 2 main parts: pave the way and make it happen. Pave the way is all about the technical prerequisites which are needed to automate everything, meaning select and implement the right tools, define and implement all kinds of pipelines. A pipeline is a set of tools being integrated with each other to facilitate automation. All kinds of infrastructure prerequisites have been arranged, and we have set up an organization to maintain and continuously improve the pipelines. This is only this is a difficult part of the journey, but it's a relatively small part. But our belief is that it's about 20 25% about automation, and it's 70 to 80% about CI/CD aware. So what did we do in the past? We implemented a small pipeline based on Jenkins, based on Maven, or Nexus, Bitbucket. We selected few teams who were eager to learn, who were eager to change. We allowed the team to work with the pipeline. We made the benefits clear to our management. We demonstrated the things to our management. The people, the engineers got very excited about it, and the management also got very excited about it. And based upon those initiatives, a bigger initiative was started to implement continuous integration, continuous delivery for the whole ABN AMRO organization. So CI/CD became one of the 4 strategic pillars of IT. So once people start the journey, they start their continuous integration exercise. Once teams become more mature over there, the people start thinking about continuous delivery. And over time, you see more and more teams moving to continuous delivery. We extended technologies at some point of time. So we're doing not only CI/CD for Java front end, but also more technologies. I will explain about that at a later stage. And we even have one team or few teams doing continuous deployment at this point of time. So we're making good progress in the journey. What was the approach? I think I have said most of them. Very important is to work together across departments, not only dev and ops, but we also have integrated our security in our pipelines. I will show that later. Very important is to set expectation management. So if you want to implement CI/CD, it will take 3 to 8 years for a company like ABN AMRO. And at this point of time, I even believe it never stops, because CI/CD is all about continuous improvement, and there's always room to improve, if you ask me. And what you also said, we're not going to make long-term plans. We define a dot on the horizon, and every quarter we're going to plan what we are going to do next quarter, and we do that based upon learning and all kinds of improvements which are required. So what are the results so far? We implemented Jira as an Agile toolset. We grew from 2,000 to 10,000 plus users in 2 to 5 years, and it's still growing. We also implemented Confluence and Slack, and these tools are getting integrated in our pipelines. And next to the tool implementation, we also have defined one way of working for Jira, because we saw in the beginning that everybody was doing their own stuff in Jira, leading to some performance issues, and also because of this lack of standardization, we were not able to get desired improvements. So we also defined a standard way of working within Jira. We have implemented all kinds of tools for our pipelines. We have integrated them with each other, and we have selected the right tools for release and deployment management. We also have defined one single way of working for release and deployment management. We have already created some standard CD pipelines, and we are even making more at this point of time. VSCS has been selected as our CI/CD pipeline for Microsoft technology, which will be landing on Azure. And currently we have about 100 applications doing automated deployments, and we have more than, in the presentation it's mentioned 500, but this week I found out it's even more than 1,000 Excel release users, and the numbers are still growing. You see that more and more teams take the initiative to do these kind of things themselves. Software quality, we'll elaborate on this later. We implemented the right tools for software quality. Automated testing, we have implemented all tools required, and teams are more and more automating, and teams are doing a shift left in testing. And for mainframe, we also have defined a plan to accelerate. We have upgraded all tools. We're moving to our latest COBOL compiler to get all kind of memory and MSU usage benefits. And we also making a mainframe pipeline based upon Compaware Topaz tool, ISPW, also Jenkins, and SonarQube. So this is the mid-range build and delivery pipeline. So our vision is that continuous integration is managed by Jenkins. The continuous integration is done in an iterative way. The goal is to define and implement minimum viable products within 2 to 3 weeks. Once all the quality gates are passed, then a deployable artifact will be stored in Nexus. And from Nexus onwards, Agile Release will take it over. Agile Release is positioned as the orchestrator for continuous delivery. And Agile Release will trigger the change management process by ServiceNow. All kind of regression and functional testing is triggered by Agile Release, and the deployments done by Agile Deploy are also triggered via Agile Release. We are extending our pipelines with Confluence for product information, for documentation, and Slack. Slack is a tool used for chat. It's a chat tool in which all kind of technical details can be included. And Slack is also integrated in our pipelines. And we also have Splunk for logging and AppDynamics for application monitoring. And these tools are also getting more and more integrated in our pipelines. So I just showed the main tools which are used for front end, for Java, for TIBCO. We also have pipelines for mobile iOS, and mobile Android. We have a VSTS pipeline for Microsoft technology. Power Center ETL is used in a data warehouse environment. We are building a pipeline there. And for mainframe, we are also in progress making a pipeline. And also for commercial off the shelf, we also defining a standard way of implementation, mainly based upon Ansible. So this is also picked up at this point of time. And so as you see, we have multiple pipelines within ABN AMRO. So then, as I said earlier, I'm also responsible for software quality. So we have two kinds of software quality, the regular software quality and the secure coding. Our belief is that the better the quality of the software, the easier and the quicker teams can update software and can release new functionalities. So code quality is key for us. And secure coding, yeah, we are a bank. Very important for a bank is to be reliable, and yeah, we want to ensure that our software is also reliable and secure. So therefore we have Fortify implemented for secure coding, and we have Nexus Lifecycle implemented to check the vulnerability of our open source, the open source libraries which we are using. So once the code is the quality of the code is not good, once we see severe issues, or once we see unsecure coding, then we have build breakers and quality gates implemented, which will cause the build to fail, and the programmer needs to fix the issue before being able to publish a deployable artifact in Nexus. And also this has been defined in the definition of done, and the definition of done is also mentioned. Your code quality should be okay, and your code should be secure, and if the code quality is not okay, then teams are not able to release software into next environments and production environment. Now we have set up a whole software quality governance around it. We have agreed upon this with senior management. Once we implemented the build breakers in the beginning, we saw some resistance from Scrum Master, from teams, from product owners. People were complaining that all kind of business functionality could not be delivered because of the build breakers. But over time, you see more and more acceptance, and you also see more and more awareness within the development community. And I see more and more developers who find it important to deliver good code quality and to deliver secure coding. So we also have set up an IT for IT organization to implement the tools and to continuously enhance the pipeline. It's not the name is not IT for IT anymore. We call it now IT value chain organization. But all kind of Agile teams have been set up to implement tooling upgrades, to implement new tools wherever needed, to continuously improve the pipelines, to handle user management, to do incident and problem management. So our belief is Agile. We want to eat our own dog food. So also the IT for IT organization does consist of Agile teams. So we have a team for Jira, we have a team for software logistics, we have a team for test tooling, we have a team for application deployment support, and I think 9 to 10 teams are in place within ABN AMRO. Okay, so I now want to hand over to Wiebe. Wiebe is going to explain about our current environment, what did we reach with it, and what are the issues we face. And Wiebe is going to explain how are we going to improve by Cloudbees Jenkins Enterprise.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So as Stephen already said earlier on in this presentation, the Jenkins platform is a very, very important tool for all of the CI and part of the CD stages. So what we currently have is we're utilizing Cloudbees Jenkins, the professional version. And that version consists of a number of building blocks. And the most important building block here is the Jenkins Operations Center, the GOC. You can see that on top of the slide, on top of the page in the middle. And connecting to the Jenkins Operations Center, there are multiple Jenkins master servers. As of now, we have 10 Jenkins master servers, all hosting a lot of teams. Those master servers are overloaded.
Yeah, I think we're having a slight problem with the audio. I apologize. These things happen. I'm not sure if we can hear us. Yes?
Environment. I hope you did hear the last words because we saw a connection loss and audio loss. But let's continue. Next to the Operation Center, we have some Jenkins build slaves. You can see that in the middle of the slide. We have the so-called shared slaves, and that means every team can utilize those build slaves. And as of now, we have more than 80 build slaves. And those build slaves are Linux build slaves and Windows build slaves. And that's all a big bunch of VMs. Next to it, we also have dynamic slaves, and that means we have specific masters for specific groups of teams that utilize their own build slaves. And on top of that, we have more than 60,000 Jenkins jobs, lots of plugins, for example, more than 250 plugins. And in the end, we have to support almost 1,500 developers right now. And we are onboarding every week. We are onboarding more than 5 teams, and every team is like an Agile team, maybe 5 or to 7 developers. So that means it's growing every day. And we have more than 70 VMs right now in our data center. And that number, yeah, well, it's still growing and growing, and we're not proud of it. So we needed to find a solution to handle these kind of workloads and to keep peace with all of the Agile teams, and also to control this in a good fashion. So that's why we selected last quarter of 2017, we selected Jenkins Enterprise Edition to be hosted on AWS as the next step for our Jenkins platform. So what are we going to do if we need to change to Jenkins Enterprise? So as of now, the whole Jenkins platform is being maintained by one of the IT for IT teams. It's called the software logistics team. And if, for example, a developer team wants to have a plugin installed on a Jenkins master, they should ask the IT for IT team to install that plugin so they can utilize that. But they need to adhere to the Scrum sprints, and maybe there's a user story on the backlog. They need to get the right priority for the team. They're completely dependent on the IT for IT team. Also, there's might be a problem if that plugin conflicts with another plugin that another team is using. So that's giving all kinds of problems here. It's reducing lead times. It's increasing time for teams to deliver software if they're dependent on that example of that plugin. So we have centralized maintenance in the old situation, and we want to have decentralized maintenance of the Jenkins masters. So with the help of Jenkins Enterprise, we can give every team their own Jenkins master. We can give their the responsibility and also possibility to maintain their own Jenkins master, so they can freely experiment with it. And then with that, we are going to shift from limited team autonomy to increased autonomy. And we try to reduce the conflicts that will happen in the tools and the configuration. Also, there's another example. On every build slave, for example, there are multiple versions of Java, Java 6, 7, 8, IBM Java, Oracle Java, OpenJDK. And the same goes for Maven, Maven 2, Maven 3, 3.5, etc. That's all being packed on all of the build slaves. Imagine we have more than 80 build slaves, including more than 10 tools, also for front-end, Node.js, for example. On all of those build slaves, you end up with a whole bunch of configuration conflicts. So with Jenkins Enterprise, we want to decentralize the maintenance, creating lots of masters and specialized build slaves for specific technologies. So with that, we're reducing the conflicts in the tools and configuration and making maintenance very much more easy. But I think there's one more point that's very, very important here is the last couple of years with the Jenkins platform, the old platform, the old Jenkins situation, we had to do manual scaling. And that means if we are reaching our capacity or our capacity is insufficient, for example, on Wednesday afternoon, if there's lots of teams doing releases, then those Jenkins servers are overloaded. And that causes a problem because we need to add a VM or add build slaves. And we needed to request all of those VMs manually. So, and that can take, for example, in our organization, that can take weeks. We cannot wait for so many weeks. So we needed to have automatic scaling. And with Jenkins Enterprise, we can scale when we need. So as of now, we can just fire a script. It will add more VMs, and then we can increase our build capacity. So that's a very, very big advantage here, and that's what Jenkins Enterprise on AWS now makes it possible for us. So briefly said, we're going to migrate from static VMs to a Docker containers. Everything in Jenkins Enterprise is based on Docker containers, and we can scale, for example, the number of Docker containers which are being needed to do builds. But we can also scale the number of VMs in AWS, the EC2 instances, which are needed to run and host all of those Docker containers. So we can decommission the VMs and we can shift it all to Docker containers, and that will greatly reduce the costs that of this whole solution. So if we take a look at Jenkins Enterprise, how that looks right now in the organization, we have an AWS virtual private cloud, and that's on the top of the slide. And we have our Jenkins Enterprise being hosted there. We installed it in the beginning of 2018 together with a Cloudbees engineer. And we have our masters, our scalable masters, and our scalable slaves, all based on Docker containers. We have hosted it there, and it's based on Mesos and Marathon. And there are multiple connections to the on-prem data center. You can see at the bottom of the slide. It's all being focused on the CI part. So if a developer checks in source code in Bitbucket, there will be a Jenkins job in AWS, in Jenkins Enterprise being triggered. It will process that job, and when the job is finished, and if there are no build breakers, if the job finished successfully, there will be an artifact pushed in Nexus. All of those CI tools are still on the on-prem data center, but we also plan to move them to AWS later on this year. So if there's an artifact in Nexus, there will also be a trigger to Excel release, and then the whole release and deployment phase, the CD part of the whole pipeline will be kicked off. So that's what it basically looks like. It's like a high over architecture picture. And if we take a look at the internals of Jenkins Enterprise here, then you can see in the middle of the screen, there's the Cloudbees Jenkins Operations Center. And that's like the heart of the system. And the Operations Center controls all of the masters and agents and logs that you see. And those are the smaller blocks at the right. And it's all running in AWS in a very high available cluster. And it's running on VMs, and we choose to run that on AWS because we are working together with AWS as a cloud provider also for other projects. And what we can achieve here is that we can continuous integration, continuous deployment as a service. We can offer that to the developers. You see that on the top left of the slide. And we're also providing self-service Jenkins to CI and CD teams because they can have control over their own Jenkins server here. And then there's still the IT for IT team that's maintaining the operation center and the underlying infrastructure, but we do not need to rely on lots of other teams or a cloud provider because it's all self-service provisioning, and we can maintain our own stuff, and we do not rely on others. So in the end, the Agile teams can maintain their own Jenkins masters, run their own pipelines in the way they like it. They can also use the standard pipelines if they have an application that's being supported by that pipeline. That's also a way to enforce quality because build breakers are in there, and it's enforcing a good quality and a good architectural structure of their applications. And this solution really prevents interference with other teams and reducing conflicts. If we take this in an example, if there is a Jenkins master failing right now, then more than 300 people, maybe even more, are being affected because of downtime. And in the new situation, if every team gets their own master, maybe only one team is being affected, and that means only 5 to 7 people. So that really helps in getting high availability, and it's creating less impact if there is a problem. So that's basically the setup of Jenkins Enterprise at ABN AMRO. I will briefly look at what we currently, what we have achieved right now, and I'm looking forward into the future and provide some next steps here. So we did the installation of Jenkins Enterprise together with Cloudbees at the beginning of 2018. We did a successful installation. It was just a matter of 3 days. So then it was all up and running and was running very smooth. We had automated provisioning of the Jenkins masters. We created recipes, that's like scripts to create Jenkins masters. You just give in the team name and you execute the script and you have a Jenkins master. That's a matter of minutes right now compared to a matter of months in the past. We're all using Docker containers. Docker is everywhere. It's not a scared term here. Everyone is getting used to Docker, and it's also accelerating innovation because the Docker containers can do so much more than just hosting an application or being a build container here. We have established a secure connection with from Jenkins Enterprise in AWS with the on-prem data center. That's all being secure, and that's working perfectly fine. We did some performance tests to see how stable the current environment is, and we ran successfully, for example, 250 Jenkins jobs at the same time on different masters, and none of the masters did really crash or restart it or whatever. And it didn't impact all of the other masters. So it's really a very stable environment, which we can fully extend if it's really needed to onboard more teams or support a high load. There were some security issues. Of course, we're a bank, and security is top priority here. Security is king. We identified all of them up front, and we made a plan to mitigate or to resolve them. And I'm very proud to say that we can really work in the public cloud in a very, very secure way. So that's all the stuff we did to get an approval from the Cloud Approval Board. That's like a management board in which you have to show your plan and prove all of the points in which
Okay, we seem to have had another little audio outage. Again, we apologize. The internet being what it is.
You will be assessed, to say like that, if your application is really ready for the cloud. So I'm going to open the enterprise. Yeah, okay, so we are connecting the Jenkins Enterprise to our current LDAP system, and once we have done that, we can onboard the first Agile teams. So we plan to have 10 teams on our test environment when this is ready, and there's a big change. Now we're using Jenkins Enterprise version #1, but later on, when the Kubernetes is ready for AWS, then we will utilize Kubernetes in the future, and we hope that we can finish the complete rollout by the beginning of next year. So that's it about Jenkins Enterprise. Heading back to Stefan for the next slides.
Okay, thank you. Now, many challenging activities going on. Setting up things, moving teams to the new environment, making sure that the current environment is phased out. And in the meantime, we're also planning to migrate to the CGE 2.0, the Kubernetes version. I would like to talk a little bit about the Make It Happen initiative I previously mentioned. So within ABN AMRO, we have defined 5 key principles. The first one is to automate everything that can be automated. Automate all repetitive tasks. So that should be part of the blood of a developer. And this is, currently this is widely implemented, and improvements are going on. The second key principle is integrate quickly and often. In the past, you saw that people were developing on their local machine. They were keeping their code there for days, for weeks, sometimes for months, and they integrated at a late stage. And because of this, all kind of conflicts were discovered at a late stage. And the later the conflict is discovered, the more time it takes. So now we want the developers to integrate as quickly as possible, minimum runtime per day, and we are moving to trunk-based development instead of feature-based development. Everyone is equally responsible. We want to give the mandate to the teams, and the teams, they need to take the mandate, and the management needs to give trust to the teams. Oh, okay. And this is also a very important principle in ABN AMRO. The fourth one, and I believe this is the most difficult one, keep changes small. So the goal is to deliver business functionality in 2 weeks and to push it directly to production. So, so that means that legacy software needs to be improved. Refactoring needs to be done. In some areas we have big monoliths which need to be cut into small pieces, into microservices. And yeah, this is very important to ensure continuous integration, continuous delivery. So in the beginning there was a little awareness about this, but now there is more and more awareness within ABN AMRO about this, and we see already teams who are making plans or are conducting plans to refactor their application and to break down the monoliths. The fifth thing, I already talked about it, get continuous feedback. So get feedback as early as possible and give the feedback to the whole team so that communication issues can be prevented. So what did we do in the past with regards to make it happen? In order to raise management awareness, to increase the management commitment, a CICD summer event was held, a lot of knowledge sharing sessions, lots of demos, lots of best practice sharing, also some good parties in between, and this led to lots of management commitment. Now we have set up a change management program focusing upon mindset and behavior. We have a coaching framework developed. So we have around 20-25 coaches which help the Agile teams. And we also have e-learning models to make the teams aware of the CSD basics and principles. And last but least, we have set up lots of communities, lots of gatherings. External speakers are invited to talk and to organize sessions within ABN AMRO. We try to have a good relationship with our tooling suppliers, and representatives from all kinds of tooling suppliers are also visiting ABN AMRO to interact with the teams, to discuss all kinds of improvements and to show future features of their roadmaps. And very important is that a platform is set up to present successes, to share your knowledge, and even more important, to share the failures and to share how people learn from the failures. So what are the realized benefits within ABN AMRO? You see all kinds of figures. We see more deployments. We see increased number of successful builds. We see lead time in testing. We see improved code quality, improved secure coding. And this is all about getting better little by little. So this is the small steps getting better. Some examples: internet banking went from 4 releases per year to 18 per year, and they are planning to release every 2 days. You see that one team doubled their velocity after one sprint, doing only CSD improvements. We see a private banking team who reduced the build from 5 hours to 5 minutes, doing continuous integration. We see first teams doing continuous deployment, and we see that people doing release management, that they are decreasing their release times. So the benefits are different per team, but the all-over impression is that CSD helps a lot to continuously improve. Now, what are the takeaways? Very important senior management commitment and involvement. They need to provide budgets. They need to resolve important impediments. They need to spread the message. They need to tell each and everybody that this is crucial. Reducing technical debt, refactoring, very important. I talked about it during the key principles. And very important is create a safe environment. If somebody is making a mistake or if somebody is making a failure, do not punish the person, but allow him to learn from the failure. And we even say that failing is okay. The more people fail, the more that they learn. Some pitfalls: do not focus upon tooling only. Tooling is only 20% of the journey. Do not underestimate its complexity. It's very complex, and it's complexer as people think in the beginning. And do not focus on long-term plans, but focus upon small improvements. Start small and improve little by little. So what is the way forward? We keep on automating and improving the tooling pipelines continuously. As I said earlier, we are transforming to DevOps. We have a plan that 40 teams need to be DevOps ready by this year. Improving way of working, mindset, behavior is a continuous attention point. We need to continuously do that. Wiebe talked about facilitating team autonomy. Very important is that we have a hybrid cloud strategy. We have on-premise infrastructure, but next to this, we have approved Azure and AWS cloud, public cloud. And you see that more and more teams are moving to public cloud to take the benefits from that platform. Also, the tools are planned to be moved there. So as you see, we as ABN AMRO, we want to provide our development community, our Agile teams, with the best of art tools and the best of art infrastructure. We're doing a database automation RFP. So what you see that we have improved our software delivery a lot, but database delivery and database changes are still done in a manual way with a separate DBA group. And we are also planning to move that to the Agile teams and to implement a tool so that database changes can be included in all kinds of pipelines together with the software delivery changes. And one important aspect is that we are setting up a CSD dashboard. We're making good progress in this. So based on Splunk, all kinds of data is retrieved, and we have defined 20 CSD metrics, which help us to make decisions based upon data. And we already see some good results based upon this. This was our last sheet. So, Alan, I would like to hand over.
I am here.
You're still there?
I am still here. I've been through it all. Guys, we only have about 2 hours worth of questions, not to worry.
You made some good noise during our presentation, we notified. Huh?
Yeah, we tried.
We tried. Yeah, that's good.
Song of interest.
Okay,
very good. But that's it, guys.
No, guys, we have a lot of questions if you have some time. A lot of questions.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, so first question. So we see front end. Actually, I'm going to ask you the first question, my own question, and that is this. For whatever reason, the financial services sector seems to be way out in front on DevOps adoption. And this is a worldwide thing with banks all over North America, Europe, Asia. They, in many instances, are well ahead of other sectors in adopting CI/CD, DevOps, Agile, Lean, etc. What do you attribute that to? Why is the financial sector usually so conservative, so aggressive in DevOps adoption?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, you see all kinds of fintech companies delivering stuff in a quick way. You see, you see that clients are they expect fancy stuff. They expect quick updates, and we as a bank, we also want to attract the right people. We want to be a sexy environment for developers. So, so my personal belief that banks are not banks anymore, but banks are IT companies having a banking license. So, in order to in order to be attractive for future personnel, and in order to make sure that quickly new features can be delivered to our clients, and the clients are asking for this. Yeah, our belief is that this is the way to go.
Yeah, there's also some research being done stating financial.
I think we're losing a little bit of audio again.
institutions are, well, IT companies producing just for the financial markets. It's a research from.
Hello?
Hello, we lost you there for a little bit.
Yeah, but
We can still hear you.
we can hear you again.
Okay. All right. Our next question, let's dive into some questions that are a little more technical. One of our listeners said he sees on the front end Java and on the CI/CD program setup slide. What about legacy systems? For instance, mainframes. How do you deal with changes on legacy platforms in relation to the new platform?
Yeah, so there are two things. We want to decouple the systems of record from the systems of engagement. So we want to do front-end changes independently on mainframe changes. So we are implementing an ESB layer between the mainframe and the front end. So that's one thing. But on the other hand, we have lots of legacy systems. We have lots of mainframe programs within the bank. And the mainframe is one of our strategic infrastructure as well. And we also have a plan to implement a mainframe pipeline. So we have procured the Topaz product from CompuWare that has been implemented. And we are now busy connecting it with Jenkins and SonarQube and ISPW to enable the people to deliver mainframe changes in a quicker way. It's a difficult exercise, but we don't want to give up. And also the mainframe is very important for us.
I think there's something that needs to be that can be added here is. For example, if we facilitate all of these CI/CD teams with a very good platform for CI, now we have the Jenkins Enterprise, and if that's very attractive and only supporting new technologies, for example, not Java 4 or 5 or whatever, then people are really encouraged and enthusiastic to use that new platform. So the more attractive we make our new solutions, new tools, new implementations, the faster people are moving towards that tools, because that greatly increases their availability and usability of it. That also helps.
Okay, good.
Excellent. Can you elaborate on the Splunk integration with pipeline? What and how?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Which integration?
Splunk. Can you elaborate on the Splunk integration with pipeline?
Yeah, so I can elaborate a little bit on it. So Splunk is used for monitoring the availability of all kind of systems, and therefore it's integrated within the pipelines for some applications. But we are also using Splunk for our CI/CD metrics. So as I said, we have defined all kind of metrics, for example, lead time, code quality, change failure rate, and more. And we have connected Splunk to all kind of tools, and based on the log information of all kind of tools, we can extract that information to readable management information. So we have a separate IT for IT team set up, and the person who is interested in this, we can have a separate call with the product owner of that team.
Very good. What about test management tools like HPE ALM implemented for automated testing? Or are the test management tools like HPE ALM implemented for automated testing?
Yeah, so we have currently the HP tools, HP ALM, HP UFT. So more and more teams also use Selenium and Protector. One important thing is that we continuously look into improvements also for the tools. And although we have integrated the HP tools in our pipelines in some areas, we are looking for further opportunities. So we're also looking to other tools.
Excellent. Do you have, I don't know, this one's not spelled as not having automated functional tests besides unit tests as part of your build pipeline? No, do you have automated functional tests, continuous testing?
Yes, so we have Protector integrated in the pipelines. We also have UFT integrated in some pipelines, and people can use and should use those tools to automate their testing. So from our IT value chain, we offer the right tools, we offer the pipelines. There is a center of expertise who helps in the procedures and all kind of things, but the testing, the automation of the test scripts, that should be done by the teams itself. So and yeah, that's happening in the Agile teams. There are teams who have done lots of test automation, and there are teams which have less test automation. But that's something that the teams should implement themselves.
Great. What about what tool did you say you use for dependency scanning?
Nexus Lifecycle from Sonatype.
Okay, very good. That
was an easy question.
Okay. Yeah, well, there's.
Are you familiar with that tool?
I am familiar with it. Can you tell us how or where or how ServiceNow fits into your pipeline, please?
Yes, so ServiceNow is used for change management. So once application deployment is done to the non-production environment or the production environment, we need to register a change in ServiceNow. So that is so we are currently integrating ServiceNow in our pipeline. So ServiceNow is triggered by Agile release. And ServiceNow is also used for incident and problem management, and that is something we still need to integrate. It's on all kind of backlogs, and ServiceNow is also used as a CMDB, as a to register all kind of IT products. So once the deployment is done, then certain information is automatically stored in ServiceNow.
Yeah, there's another way that we use ServiceNow right now, and as Stephen said, that's like a CMDB right now, and we pull also information from it to connect people to the pipeline, for example.
Yeah, and one important thing I mentioned, we also using ServiceNow as administration for our Agile teams. So all the Agile teams, all the people, all the components, they are going to be registered in ServiceNow, and that will serve as a golden source for all kind of Agile information.
Yeah, good. All right, we have time for one more question here. We have many questions though, guys. I'm going to get these to you in writing. Maybe if you have time, we could get some answers out. Are you using Jenkins certified people to work on your Jenkins Cloudbees?
Yes, we have a lot of teams, and there is a lot of Jenkins knowledge in there. And for the IT teams that are setting up Jenkins, including myself, we're all certified. And we are now also implementing Jenkins Enterprise, and as a part of that program, we also plan to have more trainings for other people, so more team members, for example, team admins can be Jenkins certified. But it's on the agenda, and it's now getting more important because the teams are getting more autonomy to maintain their own Jenkins server. So that's on the roadmap here.
Yeah. So in adding to this, we also discussing with Cloudbees a plan to train all developers using Cloudbees. So a more detailed training for certain champions, and the basic training for all other developers. A lot of our development is happening in India, and also these people we are planning to train. So there is lots of focus on training people.
Got it. Guys, we're at the top of the hour. We're not going to have time. There were, as I said there are a lot more questions, though. If it's okay, let us send them to you, and if you have the time to answer any of them, we will post them on DevOps.com. Okay? We're out of time. I apologize. Gentlemen, what a great job you did here. You really gave us some great insight. You know, this FiTech and financial services is such an important leader in the DevOps community, and it's great to be able to see, you know, firsthand kind of what your experience is. And thank you both very, very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. And you know what, guys, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you all for joining us on this another great DevOps.com webinar. Many thanks to Cloudbees for sponsoring today's webinar. And we'll hope to see everyone soon on our next DevOps.com webinar. This is Alan Schimmel for DevOps.com. Have a great day, everyone.